know the intro? Do you know how to start this there, Dan?
Welcome to Natty News Daily. This is Dan, and I'm bad at intros compared to Leroy. Bada
um,
bing, bada boom.
that was good. That was good. Okay, so let's just dive right in because this is something that James has mentioned on Instagram. He's mentioned to us with regards to majoring in the minors, which is an interesting concept because usually you're told to focus on the big stuff and not the little stuff. So I guess, James, where did that kind of brainchild stem from, and kind of what promoted you to think that way?
Yeah. Well, I think it really came from, my results from this 2021 competitive season. So the theme pretty much, if you will, of this last season was almost, just get to the finish because there was just so much going on. I knew I wanted to compete. I knew I had made significant progress to my physique. But then as we got more and more into the season, just more stuff kept coming up, stuff with the business, stuff with family life, stuff with work, moving, changing jobs, lots of different things. So we almost took it upon ourselves to use my prep as an example that it can be done. You can prep with all these different factors. You can prep while being a father, entrepreneur, business owner, working, whatever, what have you. Everything doesn't have to be perfect, because I think a lot right now, what people are hearing is, oh, you got to be, I'm not going to say names. I'm not going to do anything, but you got to tick all these boxes. You got to do this, you got to do that. And if you don't do that, you're not going to be ideal and you shouldn't compete, and you can't compete unless you're super hardcore. Like, no, you can get away with a lot, but there is a sacrifice, So the sacrifice to me was I didn't reach the conditioning that I really wanted to. My upper body was there. My lower body simply wasn't. And that's probably a factor of I didn't have the time, literally didn't have the time in my day to do the amount of cardio to get to where I needed to be. I just simply, like, 20-hour days from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed was the standard. And that's with, everything involved and still being behind with everything I should be doing. So the idea of majoring in the minors is kind of taking the failures, if you will, of this last prep and flipping the script and not saying, all right, 80% is good enough to get through. We're saying, let's take this off season and really get that last 10 to 20%. Let's really figure out the peri-workout nutrition. Let's figure out the sleep schedule to get those little added benefits. Let's figure out the supplementation, whether it's like intra workouts and all those things, all the little things that I just simply wasn't making time or effort to do. Because for the vast majority of people, they don't need to do that because they're not at the point where they'll notice that 5% difference. But a 5% difference for me on stage might have gotten me a first or I was there. It was a very competitive class, but maybe they did the things that I didn't do, and that's why they placed the way they did. So we pretty much, it's no stones left unturned. That's what we want to do this off season. And that's kind of the mindset going forward. Once I get past this kind of recovery phase where I'm currently just kind of enjoying life, being social again, rebuilding relationships where they need it, and just kind of allowing myself to decompress after 9 months of dieting and truthfully hell. So
Yeah. So I guess a couple responses to, I mean, this kind of gets back into what we've discussed before on the show, which is the balance side of things and how you prioritize things, and prioritize your life. But you made a note that you want to make these improvements in the off season, which realistically is arguably the more important time to actually implement those changes. I think a lot of people miss the boat, and they're super hardcore when they're prepping, but it's like when they're off season, they're like, off season, do I need to sleep? Do I need to do things perfectly? But that's when you grow, and that's when you can make significant changes to your physique. And
This is something that I've talked to, like, for those that don't know, I work with Cliff Wilson, which if you follow bodybuilding, I'm sure you know who that is. And, we typically do like Skype calls where we'll talk about things when I'm like throughout my off season, we do these calls, I'd send him photos and we would just chat. And one of the things that he's a big proponent of is bodybuilding and like having a dimmer switch. So he's like, if you truly want to be successful within bodybuilding, it can never be fully off, but you can dim it and you can crank it up when you need to. Right. So when you look at, an off season, for example, like for me, like this is an interesting dynamic because I kind of turn my dimmer switch down a little bit when it comes to a lot of the things that I would get almost neurotic about on prep. But I would say I put a lot of effort into a lot of the big stuff and a few of the minors that you've talked about, with peri-workout nutrition. I've been very much on top of that. Certain supplements that I've never taken before that I've taken religiously this whole off season, like stuff like that I've played with that dimmer switch a little bit, but I've probably always hung around that 80% on, maybe the odd 60, 70 here and there, but probably averaged around the 80, 85%. And then when prep starts, we'll make up that last 15. But, like Dan said, with the whole balance thing is kind of knowing, especially for, people that are in relationships or in James's case, I have kids and stuff, like you got to pick your battles sometimes. Right. And maybe concerning yourself with, I don't know, an example, like, 10, 15 extra minutes of cardio, or is it maybe I'm going to spend 10, 15 minutes with my daughter before she goes to bed? Like, I think anybody that has a family is going to know what battle to pick, regardless of if you're 2 weeks out or not. Right. So I think anybody listening that's, a bit of a mature mindset can respect both sides of the coin. Right. And, this is something we've talked about very at length when it comes to your prep in specific, because, you've had a lot of stuff going on that sometimes take away from bodybuilding. Right. And we're not making money at this. It's not our career. It's not feeding our families. It's not paying the roof over our head. So sometimes you just gotta know when to hold and when to fold. Right.
I like the reference there, but yeah, absolutely. It's, it was a true challenge finding out how to revamp my entire mindset, because prior to this prep, I was in grad school, which sounds daunting in itself, but I actually do very, very well prepping and working out when I'm in grad school because I have a very regimented schedule. I knew exactly where I was going to be at what time. I knew exactly how much time I had to work out. I didn't have any real outside responsibilities. Like I was working, but again, I was just training people. So I just fit things around that. So now that I have all these extra responsibilities, it was completely flipping how I thought about prep, and being so hardcore and meal prepping everything to being way more flexible with nutrition so that I could eat with the wife and enjoy the few moments that we did have together, because they weren't very many. I mean, there were days where 40 minutes I'd see her most, get up before she's up, get back home as she's putting Bella down to sleep. And that's just what it was. So
yeah, and there's a culture around, bodybuilding, just like anything. There's, cultural changes, there's things that shift, just like with society, right? And right now, the last probably, 12 months has been the ticking the boxes and, tracking all these little things. And, I'm not going to go into a list because it might just ruffle feathers, but like little things that in the grand scheme of things, are they going to benefit your bodybuilding? Maybe to a very small extent. But I think that, when you even say the majoring in the minors, like the things that you listed with regards to like sleep, peri-workout nutrition, supplementation, like stuff like that can still be, very much brought into your life without taking away from other areas. Right. But when you get so fixated on tracking every little thing, you've got an Oura ring on, you've got a Apple Watch on, you're wearing specific clothing because of the benefits, like all those little things. I think, if there's people that do it, right? We know people that do it. We follow people
I
that
tend to do all these things that Leroy was saying.
So this is a good dynamic though, because we're friends. We can have this conversation without anybody getting upset. But
I'm single and I live alone. Like I
right?
don't have kids, so it's like
I think you can also respect the other side of the coin, where it's like, okay,
absolutely,
if James doesn't wear Vibrams and Oura ring and get blue light blockers on as soon as the sun starts to go down, is he going to be a better or worse bodybuilder? I personally think it's not going to make a difference, straight up. And if it's a difference, like we're pushing 1%, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But if James can nail the things he listed, his peri-workout nutrition, his sleep, and, you know, for me, for example, like we talked about some supplements, like I've been very much on top of like a greens powder. I take glutamine on a regular basis. Again, all things that I've talked about with Cliff. Those are going to be maybe a 10 or 15% gain, right?
Yeah.
Which that's where they kind of, when you talk about majoring in the minors, I think they kind of lean towards, you know, kind of the major side of it and not so much the minor, but still with reference for what we're talking about, we can throw them in the minor because it's not training and nutrition.
But
Fair.
if it's, I mean, those little things, I mean, it depends on your context. Like those little things, if they're adding additional stress, it's like you might be adding, you know, benefit on paper, but if you're adding stress, that's a net negative
100%.
that might, you know, might just cancel each other out. So why even bother?
Yep.
So like I said, for me, I mean, I can pretty much add little tiny things and blue light blockers and little things and my routine, because it's not you know, it's not messing with anyone else in my house. I live by myself. It's not like I have a
take away
daughter
from
that's like taken away from her or a wife, you know, that sort of thing. So it's like, you know.
Yeah, and it's not a diss on anybody that does all those things, not you, Dan. And there's people, Dan, that
I don't take it that way.
1,000 times. There's people that take it 1,000 times more robotic than you do, and that's fine. You know, if that's what you want to do.
I know people get triggered that you know, people have different opinions or different ways of doing things. So
yeah, I mean, and that's I would hope that they realize that that's a privilege, that they have the opportunity and the time to do those things, because there are a vast majority of people that do not. They just simply don't. I'm one of them. The 10%, you know, I'm trying to add 10% to my game while they're looking at the 0.5% to 1%, which, you know, long term on paper is going to help them. But is it realistic for me? Nope. But if it is for them, go for it. Yeah, I would never discourage someone from doing fine detail stuff. Like, I'm personally trying to do more of it myself. I just think we need you have to look at it with a different lens depending on who the person is.
Yeah,
there's something to you know, there's no one way, just like there's no one way to do anything. There's no one way to bodybuild, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people forget. And, you know, the way the world is if you're not in my camp, then I don't like you. I don't listen to you. What you say has no valid points. Whereas I think the three of us, if we sat down and listed how we did things, I mean, I know we all train different, and I know I don't eat the same way as Dan does, but does that make either one of us a better or worse bodybuilder? It's just how we do things, right? So you're going to take, you know, there's going to be people that focus on those 0.5s here and there. And then there's going to be people like James that are trying to really nab that 10 to 15 that will make a substantial difference when you do focus on that stuff. But then on the flip side, those people are living very different lifestyles. Maybe they have different goals for the sport. And it's just, you know, acknowledging that there's no perfect way and there's no necessarily right or wrong way to do things. I mean, you look at, you know, one of the best of all time, Brian Whitaker, he lists bodybuilding on the most important things in his life. It's third or fourth. I can't remember. It was family, work, and then it was either something else, which I could be totally wrong, but maybe like faith, and then bodybuilding, or it was bodybuilding and faith wasn't in there. I can't remember exactly, but I remember it was behind work and family, which again, referencing James's journey to the stage this season, that's where it had to land. And I think, like you said, for a lot of people, that's probably where it's going to land, or you're going to be without a job, a successful career, or you're going to be divorced, right? Because you can't, you know, maybe for a short period of time, it can be kind of a bit more of the forefront, but, you know, for 9 months of your life to just not give all your attention to those areas, I think you're playing with fire a little bit.
Yeah, and I would venture to say, like, I mean, especially because, you know, you're not making, as a natural bodybuilder right now, you're not making money. So like for me, even though I might tend to put bodybuilding ahead of like work and other things in my priority list, it's like, in order to sustain my bodybuilding life, I also have to make an income, which I have to work in order to sustain that. And everything kind of, you know, works in unison. You know, sometimes they're conflicting, sometimes they work well together. You know, you just make the best of the situation that you have and prioritize appropriately. And yeah.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
that people get too caught up on, like I said, like the one way to do things. And if you're not doing it like so and so, or you're not doing it like this pro or this person, then you're just wasting your time, which is furthest from the truth.
It's
Right? Like,
dogmatic. Yeah.
yeah, like, there's people that we follow that we've seen arguments about training styles, or, the most recently there was a big debate about like tracking your macros, and if you could, get in shape to the stage doing a flexible approach and like that kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't need to be an argument about it. It can be a very open, honest conversation. And again, there's people that are successful on both ends of the spectrum for so many different things. And this is another prime example of that. There's lots of athletes that worry about their training, their food, and their sleep. And guess what? They turn pro. There's a bunch of athletes that track everything to the minute. They turn pro. So who are we to argue with either one?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and if they're getting what they want out of life and out of bodybuilding, and
100%. Yeah. And I think that's what it comes down
the
to. That's what people like don't acknowledge, is like, I do things the way I want to do them, whether you agree with them or not. It's how I want to do it. It's how I structure my life, right? Same with how James prepped, same with how Dan's living his life too, right? He does the things he wants to do because that's what he wants to do, right? If I like, when was the last time you guys saw me wear these? Right? I bought them on a whim and they sit there, right? Because I was like, oh, it's 5%. No, I wore them like a couple times when we'd sit out on the couch and watch TV, and Carrie's like, you look like an idiot. So I didn't want my fiance thinking I look stupid. So I took them off and I don't wear them again. And guess what? I still get a good night's sleep and I'm still making progress. So
I've been laughed at them for them too. I just stopped giving a shit.
Well, like you got no one to impress. Who cares? Right. But like, my point being is like,
yeah, no, I get
something
your
like that is so small, right? It's even less than the minors.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think we've kind of almost even flipped the script on what we started with. But this is good. It's seeing both sides of the argument, where it can be beneficial up to a degree, and that degree is just simply going to change depending on the person, and more so not just the person, depending on the time of their life and the factors in their life at that time. I mean, things can, like you said, the dimmer switch, they're going to fluctuate week to week, day to day, month to month, mesocycle to mesocycle. Like, you may have 3 or 4 training blocks in a row where you're just like locked in 100% crushing it in prep or out of prep. And then shit may hit the fan and you pull back a little bit. You're still making progress. You're just maybe making progress at a slower rate. And then when you have the life factors in order where you can push again, you do it, but you never completely turn it off. And that's where people get successful. You do that year in and year out. Over time, you're going to get what you want out of it.
Yep. 100%. I think we nailed it.
Yeah, I think so.
Like
so James, why don't you talk about some of the more details about what the things you're looking to clean up, do, implement?
Yeah.
You touched on them from a high level, but
yeah, stress management's a big one. I can't even imagine what my cortisol levels were this entire prep. And I'm actually seeing like the side effects of that now, which I've seen in the past. I don't know if you guys had similar things happen, like post finals in college and things like that, where you're just like, you're crushing yourself, you're not sleeping, you're not taking care of yourself, you're so locked in. And then when it's done, you just get like nasty sick and your body just defeats you. That's where I'm at right now. I actually, well, when my last competition was over, I still had to move. So I was working 40 hours a week. I was by myself at that point because Allie and the baby had moved up to Rochester already to kind of get out of the way. And then I had to pack our entire house. So I was getting home from work, packing our house, and like falling asleep on the floor or sleeping on an air mattress, depending on like where I lay down that night. So I didn't really just chill until last week. And as soon as I stopped and let my foot off the gas, I got like super sick, sinus infection, like body aches, like fatigue. So the way I've laid out my recovery phase or my, off season is like 4 or 5 months of just being smart about food. We know where we want my calories to be. We know where we want my protein to be. I kind of designed my own split, but we're not emphasizing any body parts just yet. We're keeping volume moderate and just letting me kind of ease back into some of the intensity, because after, running 110% for so long, you need a phase where you just shut things down a little bit. So that's what I'm doing. I've actually trained more this week. I've trained 3 times with my brother-in-law, but I'm not tracking anything. I'm just going in, I'm having fun. And I'm doing the same thing with nutrition. Now, as the weeks progress over these next 4 months, that's where I'll be slowly ramping things up. So it's not 0 to 100. It's, a 10% increase in what I'm doing each week. That's going to help with the fatigue management, the stress management, get myself and my hormones back to where they need to be. And I'll be doing blood work along the way to kind of make sure that's heading in the right direction. We talked about Dan and Leroy. I was kind of sending you guys some of the supplements I'm looking at, pretty much trying to recreate some of the like Cordy's from New Ethics, or Fat Muscle Project has a test booster. All those natural test boosters are really, instead of boosting your test, they're dropping your cortisol because they're inverse. So that's what I'm trying to do. Use like the ashwagandha, the rhodiola, rosea, like all those things to just kind of get my sleep better, get my stress levels better so that I can recover quicker, which will help with fat distribution and nutrient partitioning and all that. And then from a training perspective, we're going to focus eventually on some high frequency, probably multi-workout days, but it's going to be like mornings, because the clinic I'm working at now has a fully functioning commercial gym. I'm going to do some sort of minor volume for a target weak point in the morning before my clinic, and then hit my full workout like later in the evening. So we're going high frequency, high volume once I'm recovered. We're not doing that right now.
I'm curious to see how you like the 2-a-day stuff. I dabbled with it for a little while. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I thought it actually took away more than it added. It was just like, I felt like I was training all day, and it was just, I didn't think my performance was going up and like any more than normal. It wasn't like I had a bad, I think I did 2 mesocycles or something. It wasn't like it was bad, but I didn't really gain much of a benefit from it for me. And it was just honestly probably more stressful just to have to feel like I'm training all the time. But I'm curious. You kind of have a little bit of a different setup you're gearing towards. But I'm curious what your thoughts are. It might fit better in your structure than mine.
Yeah, and it's all an experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's exactly
what it would be something very minor. Like, we want to bring up my traps, we want to bring up my adductors. Those are small body parts, right? Like, there's other bigger things we're going to focus on.
That's but if I can go into kind of how I did it too. Is I split off that stuff, which like Steve Hall easy to recover. And like Dr. Mike and Jared have had really great success with. I didn't find the same success for me.
Yeah, like I'm not going to train, my quads, chest, or back 2 times in a day. But if I can like hammer my adductors or hammer my traps with like 3 hard sets in the morning, I'm going to recover by 24 hours. So that's not going to take away, and it's just makes you get a little bit smart about where you move your workouts and things like that. So, stress management, a little bit of creativity with the split, not taking things a traditional way. And then, definitely, I know Cliff put up his post on like the micros and eating your vegetables and things like that. And that's something I'm atrocious at.
I loved it. At the end of it, he was like, don't be a child or something like that and eat your vegetables.
Yeah, no, it's true though. I'm so bad about eating vegetables. But now
I have a quick suggestion for you in a second, but continue. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get a greens powder. I'm going to start doing my shakes again, which I start to sneak like spinach and other vegetables in as well. And I'm going to probably put some supplements in there as well, just so I'm making sure I'm getting them in at the same time every day. And the good thing is, now we're living in upstate New York. We're living on a farm right now with like an innumerable, can't say that word, lots of different vegetables that they're always eating. So we're going to have ton of fresh vegetables, like whenever I want, like salad, squash, everything, cucumber, zucchini, all that.
That's great. So, I love all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What
But
was your?
I was gonna say, how do you cook your rice?
In a pot with some water, boil it.
Cook it with V8.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I'm assuming you're talking like the tomato based kind.
Yeah, it's tomato based, but the V8s, I think,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Not
depends on the kind. They have different kinds.
Yeah.
Most of them have like other vegetables and spinach and celery and stuff all blended all up.
But
Yeah.
you're not speaking of the V8 Fusion, which is like fancy fruit juice.
No, I'm talking like the actual like salty tomato-y type juice. Yeah.
That might be something I could tolerate. Make it into
It's
almost like a soup type, you know?
you end up with like just a kind of a more of like a tomatoey rice. You just use it in place of your water, essentially.
It's worth a shot.
It's something
I'm not a huge fan of tomato bases, but
sounds terrible.
Quit being a child, Leroy.
Yeah, I'll go full child.
They have all different types of V8s. I don't know. Maybe it's another thing. I don't know. But that's an option.
Oh, and then we talked about it a little bit. I don't really know the research behind it, and I'm gonna read more into it. But like incorporating pineapple oil post workout and like truly looking at like the ratios of certain macros in that post pre
and
intra.
vitamin C.
Is that what it is? I haven't looked into it, but I've been doing it because I've seen other people do it, and I've been like, I like pineapple, and I'm like, it digests well, and I'm like,
it
cool.
aids in not preventing, but like helping with inflammation. So like post workout, like getting inflammation under control. That's what you do. And yeah,
pineapple's one of my favorite. Well, I like all fruits, but pineapple, I love pineapple. So
yeah, I would eat pineapple all day, every day. So the fact that it's beneficial, I'm gonna hop on that train.
Even this is coconut pineapple flavored.
There you go. Yeah, it's not flipping the script on anything. It's all just minor things, which probably sounds super like, duh, James, like, why aren't you doing this? But it's just things that I now need to take the time to do that I wasn't. So yeah, small things, step by step, not all at once. I'll just be adding them in as I feel I can in my schedule. You know, like I said, right now I'm not prepping anything. I cooked up a bunch of chicken for the week, but like tonight we had turkey burgers, and I made sure I had some like oats and protein after I worked out. I had like a banana and a bagel before I worked out, just keeping things pretty loose for now, and we'll tighten it up as we go along week by week.
But as you start making a lot of these little changes, you can just kind of structure it into your routine, and you just kind of just do it like almost without thinking. It just kind of becomes a thing that adds without subtracting, essentially.
Yeah. Once you start doing it consistently, it's not something you have to think about doing. It's just the food will be there, and most of my foods always stay pretty similar anyway. So once it's in the routine and the circuit, it's there. I don't always have it on stock where I don't have to think about like, all right, how am I going to get this? How am I going to get that? It's just, if I want to swap something for the day, I will, but I'll have that staple kind of diet that I go to.
That's very, very similar to like how I basically did the whole off season, is like meals 1 to 4, because it's like train in the morning and then I work all day, like exactly the same. Then dinner, whatever we're feeling, because it's going to be protein and a carb. But like I said to you guys, like the one night we made like our own chicken parm and like had some noodles with it, like protein and carb, sweet.
Yeah.
Like another night we'll do like barbecue, and we might have like a burger and like some potato wedges, like air fried, protein and carb, sick. You have like that baseline of like a visual, like you have a pretty good idea of how much you're eating, and you're not going to eat like an idiot. But man, that's basically what I did the entire off season is.
And like, there's no like
exactly the same, and meal 5 is whatever we're doing. There's
benefit to sometimes, making that meal exactly the same, but like to a large extent, it's like, who's to say which protein source is superior anyways? Like, is steak better than chicken? Is fish better? Is like, they're all protein sources that are high in leucine, and like, if you're only eating one, it's like, you don't even know that necessarily that I got something that popped up. I don't know. But you don't even know necessarily that what you're doing is even necessarily better than what, another option, like another meat source or another carb source. Like, that's a prime example of the whole dimmer switch, right? Like, that's my 80%. Come prep, like
I won't do that because that's prep, and that's not how I like to prep. I'm very, very robotic on prep.
But there's a certain thing about prep though, like if it takes away that food focus a little bit, it takes away the kind of like overthinking about what you're gonna eat. Cause like when you're in off season, it's like you're not overthinking about what you're eating. Like you're like, oh, what sounds good? Oh, that sounds good. Whereas prep, it's like if you give yourself too much flexibility, you'll be like, and I've done this before, I'm eating meal 3 while planning out what I'm gonna eat for meal 4. And I'm like, okay, this is a bad idea. This is dumb.
Yeah, that's stressful to me. Yeah. That's like same with tracking macros. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people do it. A lot of my clients do it, and they're successful with it. I hate it. I hate it with a passion because it's too stressful. I don't want to sit there, like you just said, like sitting there and trying to plan stuff and fit things in. And I can have half of this and 3 ounces of this if I have some of this. Oh, it shoots my fat. No, that's stressful. Tell me what to eat, and I'll eat it. And then, like I said, in the off season, I have that flexibility, but on prep, no way. I just. Which is like so interesting because like Cliff does things very differently than how I used to do them with my previous coach. My previous coach was like, the meal plan, here's what you got to eat it. All right, that's what I'll do. He's like, here's your numbers. This is my suggestion. Make it. And I'm like, oh no. So then I make a meal plan and I'm like, all right, life is normal again.
Well, I think even like a lot of people that have macro plans, I don't end up kind of structuring a meal plan. Like I have I have a macro plan with Josh right now, and I pretty much eat, as you could probably tell, like 95% the same every single day. So it's like,
yeah, you say that, but when you look at your Instagram, like when someone tells me that they're a bodybuilder and they eat the same thing every day, like an image comes to mind. Your food is not that image. You're random boiled eggs.
I think it's the last meal that does it.
Oh man, like protein shake, 2 boiled eggs, 3 peanuts over on the side, and like a straw of grass.
Sounds awful. All right, boys, I got a dip. I'm being requested.
All right. I think that's a good point to stop. Yeah. I think we covered everything we wanted to.
We're probably getting cut off here soon anyways. So
okay. Well, let's call it here. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a bit of a train wreck to get started because I wasn't behind the computer this time. But anyways, we got it sorted out. If you did like it, give it a like, subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram because we just overpassed 5,500 followers. So road to 10K officially.
Let's do it.
Cool.
All right. See you guys in the next one.